Okay, picture this. Times Square. Total chaos, right? But imagine people actually stopping.
Stopping in Times Square. For what?
Not for a selfie, not for the billboards. They're stopping, like properly pausing, looking at something.
Really? What could possibly make people do that there?
A statue. A new one. 12 feet tall, bronze, of a young woman. Just appeared.
Wow. Okay, that is unexpected. I mean, a large bronze statue in the middle of all that digital noise, it's quite a contrast.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We've got this news transcript about the statue, the artist, and what people are saying literally days after it went up.
Sounds fascinating. So the mission is to unpack why this specific artwork in this specific place is hitting differently.
Precisely. What's it telling us, or maybe asking us, about identity, who gets represented, what we actually value in these really public, iconic spots?
All right, let's set the scene then. The news report says 12 feet tall, bronze.
Yeah. The artist is Thomas Price. And it's right there in Duffy Square.
Duffy Square. Okay. Kind of that slightly calmer bit within the madness.
Relatively calmer, yeah. And the report says almost immediately people started gathering, looking. Its size alone makes it hard to ignore.
You can't miss 12 feet of bronze, that's for sure. It demands attention in a way a fleeting ad doesn't.
And the big question seems to be just, who is she?
And that's where the interpretation comes in. The report mentions quite clearly, technically, she's whoever you want her to be.
So, not a specific historical figure then, more of an archetype, or an every woman.
Seems like it. It invites that personal connection, doesn't it? Rather than telling you who to admire, it lets you find something in her.
Okay, so what about the artist's intention? It's part of a series, apparently.
Yes, called Grounded in the Stars, and Jean Cooney, she's the director of Times Square Arts.
Right, involved in placing it there.
Exactly. She says it's meant to confront our preconceived ideas about identity and representation.
Confront them how? By just being there.
Well, think about traditional monuments. Who do they usually depict?
Historical figures, mostly men, right? Generals, presidents, people associated with power.
Exactly. So placing a sculpture of a young, contemporary, seemingly ordinary woman there, it immediately challenges that norm. It broadens the conversation about who gets monumentalized.
Cooney also said it's a statement, potentially asking what the city, what we actually value.
That's a deep question to pose with a piece of public art.
And she also mentioned it being a tribute to just shared humanity, big goals for one statue.
Big goals, but the reaction suggests it might be landing. The transcript mentions a plus-size Black woman reflecting on seeing someone like herself represented.
Yeah, she said something about what that would have meant to her as a kid. That's powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. It speaks volumes about the need for visibility, for seeing yourself reflected in the public narrative.
And there was another reaction, too. A plus-size African-American man felt it was a really powerful moment, seeing something that resonated with his identity.
See, these aren't just casual, oh, that's nice reactions. It's tapping into something deeper, a feeling of being seen, maybe for the first time in that kind of setting.
It really highlights that fundamental need for representation, doesn't it? Especially for groups who haven't historically seen themselves centered in, visual culture.
Absolutely. Public art can be incredibly affirming when it does that.
Something else people noted, according to the report, was her gaze, the statue's gaze.
Oh, what about it?
Described as focused, purposeful, like she's looking intently at something specific, but you don't know what.
Interesting. That avoids making her seem passive. It suggests she has her own thoughts, her own direction.
Like an inner life.
Perhaps, or resilience, maybe quiet strength. And by not defining what she's looking at, the artist leaves it open. You project onto that gaze.
So the viewer becomes part of the interpretation.
Exactly. You're not just looking at her. You're engaging with what she might be seeing or thinking.
There was also this comment from a person of color. They described her as looking like an everyday person.
Okay, that resonates with the whoever you want her to be idea.
Right, but they also said she felt a little out of place there in Times Square. Though they added, maybe that feeling would change if the surroundings were different.
That's a brilliant observation. It nails the whole context issue.
What do you mean?
Well, the feeling of being out of place probably comes from comparing her to the usual Times Square visuals, the ads, the flashing lights, the commercialism.
Okay, yeah. She's solid, still, quiet.
Exactly. But the idea that she might not feel out of place elsewhere highlights how much our perception is shaped by what we expect to see in a certain environment. It kind of implicitly critiques Times Square itself.
Which, interestingly, seems to be part of the point.
Uh,
The officials, the report says, wanted that contrast.
so the juxtaposition was deliberate.
Yeah, they saw it as a positive thing, setting her against the more, traditional statues you find elsewhere in the city. They
That
wanted that difference to stand out.
makes sense. That visual friction, putting something unexpected somewhere familiar, it makes you look again. It makes you think about both the object and the place.
Shakes things up.
Definitely shakes up visual assumptions.
And just to circle back to that core idea, the report ends by emphasizing again, technically, she's whoever you want her to be.
That openness is really crucial, I think. It's not telling you what to think.
It's more like a prompt.
Exactly. A catalyst for your own thoughts. You bring your own background, your own identity, your own experiences to that encounter.
So, summing up this deep dive,
Yeah.
this statue isn't just decoration for Times Square. It's more like an intervention.
A deliberate one, yeah. A presence designed to make you think, make you talk about identity, value, visibility.
And its power comes from being unexpected there and from letting people connect individually in this massively public space.
Right. It shows that art doesn't have to be locked away in museums to matter, putting it right into the flow of everyday life, even chaotic life like Times Square.
Gives more people a chance to engage.
And maybe, just maybe, see themselves reflected in a way that older monuments often don't allow for.
So here's something to chew on after our dive. How does putting art in unexpected places like this really challenge our perceptions?
And how does it force conversations about who and what we value, who gets represented?
Yeah. And what other kinds of figures, what other forms, if placed in different settings, could spark similar kinds of reflection? Makes you think about the stories our public spaces tell.
And the different stories they could be telling. It's a powerful thought.